Today we will do 3 short connected suttas connected by theme on the married life, on love between couples, how to be happy in this life, basically, through the Dhamma. The first sutta is called Nakulamata Sutta, A 8.48. The second one is Samajivi Sutta 1, A 4.55. And the last one is Piya Mallika Sutta, S 3.8, also found in the Udana, U 5.1. Right. So now, when we study suttas, it's not about knowing things. If you look back at all those suttas, sutta talks or Buddhist talks you have heard all your whole life, you just imagine how much of it is really useful, right? So sometimes many of these talks don't really have that kind of use unless you feel it. So studying suttas, listening to suttas is about feeling. It's about being present, listening, and also reflecting on how wonderful it is to be present here from different parts of the world. Here we are sitting together, doing what we enjoy, what we feel happy with. In fact, many of the suttas we can read it ourselves. There's so many good translations with lots of notes. But here we are sitting, listening, because we love the company. We love sitting with someone we love, someone we care for. Or we are sitting here because we love the Dhamma. So there's this feeling for this very wonderful thing taught by someone called the Buddha 2,500 years ago. And it's full of love, full of joy and peace. So it's not how much we know from the suttas. It's your presence, your feeling. Just feel good about it and say, well, I'm really happy to be here. It's nice to be really keeping the precepts now. Imagine if you are caught in something else, in the traffic jam, in some stuck in a shopping line, and so on. You can think of 1,001 things. But here you are, sitting here happily on your own, in the comfort of your own home, dressed very simply, just as you feel comfortable, and listening to this wonderful teaching handed down to us over 2,500 years, these famous stories of great saints. They were originally very simple people, just like us, but they met the Buddha and became very special, and they became saints themselves. And some of them live married lives. Some of them are lay people, just like us. Yet they are saints. They become stream winners. They become once returners, non-returners, even arahats. So one such person is this lady called Nakulamata. This is not her real name. Nakulamata is a sort of a title, mother of Nakula, right? You can guess, Mata is mother. In fact, it's, even Latin is the same, Mata. Mother comes from the same, comes from that Latin word actually. And then Pita also is very close. Pita is father, right? So you have Nakulamata, mother of Nakula, and the husband is Nakula Pita, father of Nakula. Nakula means mongoose. Is one of the Indians, people in South Asia, they regard this beautiful otter-like mammal as a very auspicious animal. Some even have to believe that this the animal that can vomit out treasure, you know. And this Nakula also protects the humans from snakes. They like to eat snakes. They're very good fighting with snakes. So that's Nakula. So Nakula Mata is the wife, and Nakula Pita is the husband. And there are a number of suttas about them. But today we're going to look at how she herself goes to the Buddha and asks questions, dhamma questions from the Buddha. Of course, she asks about a woman's life, about the duties of a wife, right? In this case, right? You see here Nakulamata Sutta, the discourse through Nakulamata, or we can also translate as simply the Nakulamata discourse, right? Pali is very flexible, okay? So you can translate it into English in different ways. And then you have this A848. A is Anguttara. 8 means it is preserved in the book of eight things, Sutta number 48. And the theme is on how women can be reborn among the gods. Let's find out why the gods are mentioned here. All right. Okay, let's go down to the sutta now. The translation. Okay, the Nakulamata Sutta discourse on Nakulamata. Oh, there's a bit of difference in translation here. Here's this Nakula on. The other one is to. So we got to standardize it. See, the thing is, although we translate differently in English, its translations are correct. It reflects the Pali title. At one time, the Blessed One was staying in the deer park in the Besakala forest at Sumsumaragiri in the Aga country. This is quite a way out of the urban India. No? I mean, look at the name Sumsumara. Sumsumara means it's one of the words for crocodile. Gira, I think Gira means something like this sound made by this crocodile. So there's some story behind it I've told before in some talks. And the Buddha was staying in a deer park. So there are many deer parks in India. Okay, so you have the deer park outside Isipatana. So here there's a deer park in outside that area in Baga country. So the Buddha was sitting there with the monks, staying there. And this is when the lady Nakulamata comes to visit the Buddha. Then the house lady or housewife, Nakulamata, approached the Blessed One, saluted him, and sat down at one side. Seated thus at one side, the Blessed One said this to the housewife Nakulamata. So notice in this case, the Buddha spoke first here, okay? Because this Nakulamata, she is regular supporter of the Buddha. And in fact, there's a quite interesting story about how the couple, Nakulamata and Nakulapita, they first met the Buddha. On their first meeting, when they see the Buddha, they have this what we call deja vu, okay? This amazing sense of connectedness. We know this person, the kind of feeling. So the moment they saw the Buddha, they said, my son. Apparently, in 500 past lives, they were parents to the Buddha. Another 500 past lives, they were grandparents to the Buddha. Another 500 past lives, they were uncles and aunts to the Buddha. So imagine that closeness. Although I say 500 here, 500 there, and so on, this is a very small number when you compare to how many lives you have gone through, going back into the past, long past. So you can see we have this wonderful interconnection. That is why we meet again, right? We meet again because we've been kind to each other. We've been doing a lot of nice things to each other. Oh, by the way, we can also keep meeting each other because we are nasty. We are nasty with each other. We hate each other. And we're going to get caught again doing the same thing again. So if you look at this situation, why not be nice to each other instead? I mean, I'm sure we don't enjoy being nasty to each other and then meeting again and going through the whole thing again, being nasty and so on, right? It's not worth it. So in this case, we all have met before. We all have studied suttas before together. That's why you all keep coming back for the suttas. There is this wonderful connection. And many of you, if we've never met before, you've come from far corners of the world, and here you are sitting here listening to the Buddha's sutta, the Buddha's teaching, right? So here we see this Nakulamata, this lady, meeting the Buddha, and here the Buddha gives her a teaching. Nakulamata, a woman who is endowed with these 8 qualities after death, when the body has broken up, will arise in companionship with the Manapakayika Devas. Okay, so it's a special group of Devas, right? Happy beings, and they are joyful, and apparently they can emanate any kind of colors they want. They can also produce beautiful sounds, music. So it's a really joyful life for these devas. Right? They have these amazing powers, and this is what characterizes this kind of devas. Right? Of course, once you hear this kind of description, we're not talking very high level devas. They are not those jhana devas, the devas of the sense world, but they're still happy anyway. So what the statement here means that this good karma we create now will bring us this happy state. So you may ask, so what's the point of being reborn in such happy states when we will fall away from all these heavens, when our karma is gone? In fact, the way the devas die, we have a special term for it. It's called chavati. Chavati. And the noun is chuti. Chuti. No? And the word chuti you also find in Malay. I don't know whether it's the same word or not, but of course in Malay, chuti means holiday. But this is no holiday because the devas they just died. It's like a lamp, the lamp, the battery runs out and then zap, the light's gone. It's like that. And apparently the devas also know that they're going to die. They can sense, they can notice, oops, my battery is weakening, And there are traditions, there are other ways they can know. For example, they begin to sweat. They usually don't sweat. I mean, the devas, their armpits begin to smell. Their heavenly clothing begin to look a little shabby, things like that, So they can sense they're going to die. And when they know this, they're not very happy. They say, oh, I'm going to miss all this. So die unhappily, and then the bad karma takes over. It is this kind of idea that led to this populist Buddhist teaching. In other words, it's the later modern ideas that the kind of thought that you hold on to before dying will decide the kind of future life. The thing is, we don't find such a teaching in the suttas anyway. In the stories, yeah, commentaries, yes. So we got to really know where is the teaching coming from. So from what I studied in the suttas is that even if an unhappy man, a very good man dies unhappy for any reason, the good karma he's been doing, the habitual karma he's been doing will push him, will drive him to be reborn in a happy state. That's more likely. In fact, we have a story later on showing how this Queen Mallika dies and then, she's reborn. We'll a little later we'll do that. So here, the Buddha tells Nakulamata, because of 8 qualities, because of these wonderful qualities that a woman has, she'll be reborn among these devas, right? 3. So that's the first brackets 1. That's the first quality. Here, Nakulamata, to whichever husband her parents give her, being compassionate, she desires for his well-being, cares for his good. Okay, the moment you read this, this is what's called a neyata teaching. Neyata, that means the meaning has to be drawn out. This teaching is culturally limited. It refers to the culture of the Buddha's time, of arranged marriages. You'll be surprised, even today, Even in Singapore, in modern Singapore, we have Indian families where their families arrange marriages for them. We have a very close family friend who was whose marriage was arranged with a husband, and they were happy anyway. In fact, she became very successful after she worked with us. She became richer than us, and she's very happy. In fact, she became so successful that she could, with all that earnings she made, she could support the children through higher education. So here, this Nakulamata was told by the Buddha that whoever, when the woman is given away in marriage, she's compassionate and she thinks kindly towards this person she's marrying. Okay. Remember, the Buddha is talking to a woman here, right? So out of compassion for him, she rises before him, retires after him. Okay, I almost can hear protests from women, modern women, that say, "Oh, we're equal nowadays." Well, let's say in this case, if you say, "Okay, well, what do I do? I'm to be a natural woman. I'm not going to follow the fashion of the times, all these ideas, where women try to show themselves so strong and until men are scared of them." And of course, we do not want the other way around. Also, men bullying women, that also is bad. So we must have this. I won't even talk of equality of the sexes. I don't think we can male equals female. It doesn't make very good sense. We talk about harmony, balancing, helping each other, right? So surely, although this woman may wake up earlier than the husband, sometimes the husband wake up earlier than her. So there is that possibility. Here, basically, the Buddha is talking about what sort of good duties can be practiced in those days. Okay, so we can make a little bit of adjustment when we talk about this kind of teaching the Buddha has given us. The Buddha allows us to do that. The Buddha says, you have to understand when you read this kind of sutta. Okay, is it neyata? Is the meaning has it got to be brought out? We must point out it is a cultural thing, or is it a direct dhamma teaching? Okay, so of course the direct dhamma teaching here is compassion, right? Compassion for the partner. You must have compassion for your partner, otherwise you won't be happy, right? Okay, the last line says, readily acquiescing to his request, that means agreeing to him, pleasant in conduct, pleasant in speech. So to love someone is to give space, basically, accept the person in almost every way, every sensible. All right. So this is the basic idea of love. In fact, this is what happens when people are in love. They will do anything for the person they love. Right? So basically here the Buddha is talking in the worldly sense. What do you do when you're in love? Right? All right, so that's the first one. Very out of character, you might say. The Buddha would be talking about impermanence and so on, but here the Buddha is talking very simple worldly happiness. Be happy with your man, the Buddha is telling women. Number two, wherever the husband honors as mother, father, recluse, Brahmin, she shows them hospitality, shows them respect, holds them in high esteem, and reveres them with offerings, offering them seeds and water. But the key word here is hospitality. All right. So this is where the wife doesn't say, "Oh, your friends are your friend, my friends are mine." She is part of the partnership. Okay, she presents herself together. I've met some people like that. It's really wonderful to see them together, talking with us, attending to us, being hospitable to us, right? So isn't it wonderful here to have both husband and wife together and welcoming guests, welcoming relatives, right? And when they talk, they help each other. Okay, so these are very important qualities we must remember. Even after listening to the sutta, we got to practice all this. So this is hospitality. Number 3, whatever work the husband does at home, such as in wool or cotton, therein she is skillful and diligent, endowed with skill in means, and an inquiring mind. Now look at this, very interesting. An inquiring mind, intelligent mind, putting in sufficient effort and making sufficient preparations. This is really good advice. Okay, so if you want to succeed, remember this paragraph. This also shows a bit of social history in India in the Buddha's time. So in this case, you see a cottage industry. You see this family, they're working at home. They are cutting wool or cotton. In other words, they have this wool and cotton, and they are, like combing it and making threads from it and so on. Right? So in this case, the husband is not an agriculturalist, but here he's doing this kind of work at home. So in this case, the wife also should learn something and be good in this, right? She should be skillful. Here, not only skillful, but also tactful. Good and skillful means, because they'll be workers, right? And she has an inquiring mind. So she a mind that looks at situation, asks question, what if this, what if that? How can I improve this? And so on. Putting in sufficient effort. Notice here, the Buddha is very compassionate. He didn't say you put in all the effort you can, but says put in sufficient effort. Making sufficient preparations. Very sensible, isn't it? You prepare well for all these things. Do what you can. And so this is where husband and wife, they're working together. Isn't that wonderful, right? Okay, number 4. Whatever comprises the husband's household, or whoever comprises the husband's household, slaves or messengers or workers, she knows the work of each of them by what has been duly done or duly undone. So here is household chores and duties. You may say, oh wow, the slaves are mentioned here. Okay, this again, as I said, this is Nayata teaching. This is in the Buddha's time. Slaves was part of the culture, as it was in ancient Greece. Mind you, in ancient Greece, if there were no slaves, they would never have had that great Greek culture. It's because of their slaves that they have lots of time. So the rich have lots of time. They spend time looking at the sky, looking at nature, writing things, studying. Got the slaves do all the work for them. But who are these slaves? Well, some of them owed people money and they couldn't pay. So depending on the severity, seriousness of the debts they owe, if it is really bad, they have to serve the family, of course, without pay. So that's their way of paying back. So they are slaves to the family. Sometimes because they are so poor and they owe so much money, the whole family become the family slaves. You may say, wow, that sounds terrible, looking from our modern times. But if you look at, imagine back in those days, this is a really good arrangement. Imagine you have this poor family who cannot survive by themselves. They are taken in by this rich family. So you become part of the family. You get food, you get shelter and clothing and safety, right? But you have to work. So you work, and that's a kind of social arrangement. And remember, the Buddha has teachings about slaves. They say you have to treat your slaves well. You cannot push them around, you know. And that's the thing about slaves. Slaves are part of the family. And whenever the family is mentioned, slaves are also mentioned. And it's very interesting because the suttas would say the slaves should be well treated. In fact, the slaves sometimes can be quite spoiled, you know. For example, the slaves can say, oh, I can't do this today, I got a headache, you know, and they don't have to work. So this is where if you have a laborer who's employed, he can't say that, see, because he's paid to do it and he has to do it. Whereas a slave has that space, has that latitude. So you do see that kind of arrangement here. So that's what we say dasa. Dasa it's not the kind of slave you see in America in those dark days, no? So slaves or messengers, workers, so this is part of the family doing all this wool and cotton work. So she knows what each of these persons have to do, what but the person has completed and what's not completed. So he is like a manager, if you like, right? So she manages this business, if you like, economics at home. Right? So this is how we find that a woman is being proactive, in the sense that the Buddha's definition of it anyway. And then further down, she knows when they are ill and when they are strong or weak, right? Now, this is also mentioned in the Sigalovada Sutta, for example, right? So to take care of the workers, don't overwork them, right? So here it's a bit clearer. It says, know when they are ill and see how strong they are and how weak they are. If they're too weak, don't give them the wrong work and so on. So there's always this kind of humane aspect of treating workers. Isn't that wonderful here? And then feeding them. She distributes food, both hard and soft, giving each and everyone their share, right? So meaning they are fed well. And as you know, Indian food can be very tasty, huh? With all the curries and so on. And they're very generous with rice, okay? Because you need all that carbohydrates for energy, you know? So that's managing the household work. Number 5, when the husband brings back wealth or grain or silver or gold, she keeps them well protected and well guarded. And in this regard, she is not depraved, no thief, no addict to drink, no one who squanders. Right? So these are the bad qualities. You know? Depraved, doing all the wrong things, breaking the precepts and stealing all this wealth for own use. And then the drinking. Right? Notice even a woman also is told not to drink. So those people who says, oh, the Buddha did not have, the early suttas do not have the 5 precepts. Notice is mentioned separately here. And the person and she's told not to be wasteful also, right? So these are kind of echoes of the Sigalovada Sutta, how to manage the family wealth properly, protect the wealth that the husband brings back. So don't waste the money, save, protect the money, and so on. So this is a very important teaching to remember. All right. So, okay, I think it's 9 o'clock now, right? So let's take a short break. Right now, we've gone to point 6. She is a female lay follower who has gone to the Buddha as refuge, gone to the Dhamma as refuge, gone to the Sangha as refuge. So here the Buddha is talking about an ideal couple. So they are Buddhists, they've taken refuge. In fact, in the case of Nakulamata, you find that she's very devoted to the Buddha. And she also is a practitioner, and she became, in due course, a stream winner. Both of them, husband and wife, became stream winners. In fact, both husband and wife are held up by the Buddha as the ideal couple who really respect and trust each other. Number 7, she's virtuous, refraining from harming life, from taking the not given, from sexual misconduct, from false speech, from strong drinks, distilled drinks, fermented drinks, and that which causes heedlessness. This is clearly the list of 5 precepts. And so she keeps the precepts. Notice number 6 is taking the 3 refuges. Number 7 is keeping the 5 precepts. So she's a practitioner. And not just being religious, not just being holy, if you like. Number 8 says she is charitable, dwelling in the house with a heart free from the stain of avarice. In other words, generous, kind and generous. Devoted to charity, open-handed, delighting in giving, devoted to alms giving, delighting to having a share in giving. You know, when I read this paragraph, I always remember my late grandmother. She's the oldest from the previous generation. And as I remember, you know, in those old houses in Malacca, we have these huge big windows on either side of the main door. And we're kind of right beside the main road. But there's a bit of pavement, you know. And she will sit there certain times of the day, and then she will notice if there are beggars walking by. She will actually call them, and she will give them a few cents. Now, we're talking about 50, 60 years ago. So 10 cents is a lot of money. So she would give them a few cents. And when she passed away, we were amazed that the people who came, a huge number. You know, we were surprised where all these people come from. Many of them we do not even know who they are, because they remembered her charity, her kindness. So she learned all these things. I was too young to ask her where she learned all this from, but she has. That's one good thing about her. Her recall. So there you are. Those are the 8 points of really a wholesome quality for a woman. And the Buddha closes the teaching and says, Nakulamata, a woman who is endowed with these 8 qualities after death, when the body is broken up, will arise in companionship with the Manapa Kayika Devas. Right? So here we find actually the 8 qualities make her life happy, make her life of quality in this life itself. So in the next life, she's also happy in a divine way. And then the sutta closes traditionally with the verses, closing verse. Whoever bears it all, always zealous, industrious, bringing every joy to him as a man well cared, wrongs not her husband. The blessed wife moves not her husband to anger with spiteful words. She honors all those whom her husband honors. Wise is she. Rising early, industrious, well carrying the household. Sweetly she conducts herself before her Lord, guarding his wealth. Such a good woman goes with her husband's will. She shall arise among the gods, called pleasant, Manapa. Okay, so this is the teaching the Buddha gives to this lady, for women in general, not just Nakulamata. And you find the Buddha also teaches men, like in the Sigala Vada Sutta, how men should take care of women and of the family and so on. So this is about Nakulamata. Okay, now let's go to the next sutta, Samajivi. Okay, here you are, Samajivi Sutta. The first discourse on harmonious living. You can go to the start. Okay, so this A455. The book of fours. There are four important things in the sutta, and sutta number 55. Here again, the theme is about happy married life, living as ideal loving partners here and hereafter. Okay, let's see. What has the Buddha got to say about this? Okay, let's go down to the teaching. Now, sama means same, very similar word. Jivi means living together. Sutta 1, so there are at least 2 suttas by this name. This is the first discourse on harmonious living. So sama means same, as we say in slang. it means harmonious. So here, in the first part, the Buddha talks about the virtuous couple. Thus have I heard, at one time the Blessed One was staying in a deer park in the Besakala forest at Sung Sumara Gira in the Baka country. Then in the morning, the Blessed One, having dressed himself, taking rope and bow, went to the house of the house Lord Nakulamata. Having gone there, he sat down on the prepared seat. So here he goes for his morning alms to this devotee's house, and the Buddha is being offered food, alms food in the house, right? So let's see what happens further down. Then the house lord Nakulamata and the house lady Nakulamata approached the Blessed One. So they together approached the Buddha. Having approached the Blessed One, saluted him and then sat down at one side. Seated thus at one side, the house lord Nakulamata said this to the Blessed One. Bhante, ever since the house lady or housewife Nakulamata was brought here in marriage. Okay, this word brought here actually has a special meaning. It means married, because the bride is brought into the man's house. As a mere girl, right? She was kind of like 16, so they married quite early those days. As a mere girl, when I was myself still a mere lad. So it's like they were betrothed to each other at an early age. I do not recall ever having wronged her, even in thought, much less in deed. Bhante, we wish that we would be able to see one another, not only in this very life, but also to be able to see one another in the lives to come. Okay, this is an amazing request. So you find this couple really love each other, they're really happy. Okay, you find today sometimes you watch in the movies, for example, the wife might say, "Oh, I do not want to see my husband anymore," or the husband doesn't like the wife, and so on. But not this case. Here you see this two people very happy with each other. They have been living together and really happy. So they're telling the Buddha, they're asking the Buddha, we really want to be together, you know. How can we do that? Can we continue to be together in future lives? Now, so this is what Nakulamata says. And the wife doesn't remain silent. In fact, the wife says the same thing, but in her own words. 2.2. Then Nakulamata too said this to the Blessed One. Bhante, ever since the house lord Nakulamata was brought here as a mere lad, when I myself was still a mere girl, I do not recall ever having wronged him even in thought, much less in deed. Bhante, we wish that we would be able to see one another, not only in this very life, but also to be able to see one another in the lives to come. Right? So now you see the important ideas are underlined in the previous paragraph, and then here, since they're repeated, they are given in italics. So these are a little bit of coding which is used in the SD series. No? So here, the sutta is showing us that they both think alike. They love each other and they want to be together. So they ask the Buddha, how can we do that? How can we be together? Okay, this is the Buddha's answer. Further down. If house lords, both husband and wife, wish to see one another, not only in this very life, but also to be able to see one another in the lives to come, they should have harmonious faith, harmonious virtue, harmonious charity, harmonious wisdom. Now look at the Pali words. Now, if you know Malay, you say, oh, it is interesting. Sama Saddha, same in faith. Sama Sila, same in moral virtue. Samachaga, same in charity. And Samapanya, same in wisdom, right? So Sama, you can translate same if you like. You can also, I mean, it's got a broad range of meanings, you know, compatible. In this case, I used the word harmonious because they kind of like balance each other up. They help each other out. They're not challenging each other, but they're helping each other up. So there is this harmonious faith, harmonious harmonious faith, that means they both look up to the three jewels. They're very happy because of the three jewels. Harmonious virtue, they keep the precepts and they're happy keeping the precepts. So they help each other to keep the precepts. They're also harmonious in being kind to others, being charitable. And their wisdom are also compatible. They help each other in their wisdom. So these four things, faith, moral virtue, charity, wisdom. You have these four which are compatible, you'll be together. So notice here, we're talking about more than equality of the sexes here. We're talking about the mind. We're talking about spirituality, right? So the Buddha says, then with these four qualities, they shall be able to see one another, not only in this life, but also to be able to see one another in the lives to come. Why? Because they've been kind to each other. They've been wise with each other. They do things together, good things. And then the Buddha closes with the verses. It's a very short, very clear teaching. When both are faithful, easy to speak to, restrained, living by dhamma, both of them, husband and wife and husband, speaking loving words to one another, blessed with abundance, they shall arise again in a prosperous home. Further down, rejected are their foes, for both wife and husband, harmonious in virtue. Having lived in Dhamma, here both matching in virtue and piety, blissful in the Deva world, they enjoy whatever pleasure they desire. Right? So they will be born happily together in the heavenly life also because of their goodness. So this is quite a simple, direct teaching that, of course, some of you may wonder, say, okay, what if my husband has got different qualities, right? Of course, here we're talking about the ideal situation. Even though we may not be like Nakulamata, we can take that role which is suitable for us and be an example for our husband or wife, right? So here it's not that everyone must be like this, you know. It's a situation where we help each other. Whatever is missing, we try to fill that in for the other person. So that way we grow together. So this other person in our life will look up to us and see us as dependable, as safe and loving. So here is the ideal, but we do what is practical and practicable for us. All right. So the rest I leave for question time. Let me go on to the last sutta. You know, some people are waiting for this sutta. It's very interesting. Piya Mallika Sutta. Okay, the next one. Okay, here Piya, I notice there is a macron over the A. So it's pronounced as Piya. It's a feminine adjective. Not Piya, loving, pleasant. Mallika, Mallika is the name of the queen, Queen Mallika. Sutta, the discourse on Mallika on the beloved, or the discourse to Mallika on the beloved. But here it is Mallika who's doing most of the teaching and in a manner of speaking. So translation is discourse on Mallika. So here, this is found in Sangyutta, chapter 3, Sutta 8. It's also repeated in the Udana, volume 5, just chapter 5 rather, Sutta 1. So that means this sutta is quite well known, quite important. And the sutta has got another name, Piyatara Sutta, the discourse on the more beloved, who is more loving, basically, Piyatara. The theme is, as we love ourselves, so do others love themselves. This is a very tricky sutta. It's quite amusing, a bit humorous also. A dialogue between husband and wife, between the king and King Pasenadi, very powerful king in India at that time. You might say what he was the most powerful king then, and the wife Mallika. Let me just tell a bit of a brief background how she became the queen of Pasenadi. Now, when Pasenadi was younger, he was not on good terms with the nephew Ajatasattu, who's the son of Bimbisara. In fact, when Ajatasattu killed his own father, this Pasenadi was very unhappy. In fact, they went to war. And by the way, this the Ajatasattu is the nephew also, right? I forget the relationship, whether Pasenadi and Bimbisara were brothers or is it through the mother's side. Anyway, so they went to war. As you know, when these Indian kings, ancient kings go to war, they don't really fight each other. The soldiers will fight each other. And in this case, Pasenadi was losing, so he was very tired and unhappy. So he was dragging himself away from the battlefield, and he was lying down quietly, someplace to rest. And then there was this very cheerful, happy woman called Mallika. She's not very pretty, but she's very kind, very cheerful. So that made her look really good. And then she saw this tired young king, and the king first asked her, "Are you married?" So she said, "No, she's not married." So she's only like 16 years old, and so she so she took care of this tired king, and she let the king rest on her leg, and the king fell asleep, and then the king took care of. This Mallika took care of the king. The king was very impressed. The king was very happy, right? And to cut a long story short, the king took her as the queen, as the chief queen, in fact. So that's how they got married. So Mallika was not only cheerful and happy, she was also very wise, as you will notice in this story about her. There is something else that is really great virtue of Mallika, which I should have told first, actually. She was bringing some porridge from the day before, this sour gruel, in a bag. He was carrying in a basket, three servings of it, and she was going out. And then when she was going out, she probably was bringing those meals along for her father or someone else. Then she saw the Buddha, and being a very kind-hearted person, when she saw the Buddha, she was very impressed. She felt so happy. She's always happy and smiling, this kind of person. And she offered a part of this sour gruel to the Buddha. The Buddha accepted it, and then after that, the Buddha smiled because Ananda was there. Whenever the Buddha smiled, Ananda will ask the Buddha, "Why are you smiling?" Okay, and the Buddha will explain, because according to tradition, the Buddha never smiles with no reason. But the Buddha said, "Okay, this Mallika, she's such a wonderful, kind lady. Her fortune is going to change. She will marry. She'll become queen one day. This Pasenadi will look at her and fall in love with her, something like that, right?" And true enough, later on, she became the queen. So you can see that her roots in the Buddha's teaching was there for a long time. So she's that kind of person, very kind all the way, right? So in this short story, it's very loving, very amusing, and a wonderful story. You have this small dialogue between the king and her. Let's see what transpired. What did the king ask? Okay, let's go down to the sutta. Piya Mallika. We got to go down. That's it. Okay, there you are. Oops, I forgot to put the macron over the last A in this one. Piya Mallika Sutta, the discourse on Mallika, on the beloved, S3.8, also appears as U 5.1. Okay, in the Samyutta, the suttas, Ewang Misutang only appears right at the start of the chapter. If it is in the middle, the sutta will just say originating somewhere. Okay? In this case, originating at Savatthi. Thus have I heard at one time the Blessed One was residing in Anathapindika's park in Jeta's Grove near Savatthi. Notice the square brackets here, so it's just adding in for background. Now at that time, the Raja Pasenadi of Kosala, together with Queen Mallika, had gone to the roof terrace of the royal palace. This was probably in the evening, right? Maybe there's a full moon up there. So they are relaxing on the roof garden, right? So then the Raja Pasenadi of Kosala said to the queen, Mallika, is there or not one who is more beloved than your own self? All right, very kingly. Eh? Now, those of you who have done Shakespeare will say, oh, I know this one, right? Because this is a similar question which opened a tragedy called King Lear, which I did in my A-levels in school. So King Lear, in Shakespeare's story, has 3 daughters. And he is old, he wants to divide up his kingdom for the 3 daughters. So he wants to know from each of his daughters how much they love her. So he asked them, tell me how much you love me, right? So the first daughter says, okay, I love you like this, like that, like gold, whatever. Second daughter also praises him in some nice ways that he wants to hear. Then it comes to Cordelia, the youngest daughter, the youngest princess. She is very honest, a little naive perhaps. So she doesn't know what to say because she's very open. So she tells the father, I really don't know how to answer your question. You know, how do I measure love, for example? So she talks like that. The father was not happy, you see. I think that the story went on something like the father said, surely you must like something, you know. Well, why can't you think of something that you like and maybe, you know, compare it? So it went on to something like, say, oh, okay, you ask me what do I like? I like salt, you know. So I suppose I like you like I like salt. Well, the father was not very happy. So you have this a very silly kind of conversation. And it became a tragedy because the king was very unhappy with Cordelia and she did not get her share of the kingdom, and he went on like that. And in the end, you know, such a silly king suffers. So the other 2 daughters were really nasty women. They connived, and then they in fact threw out the whole king, and he's left all alone, and he goes mad. You know, so that's the tragic aspect on the far side, right? But here we have this king, Pasenadi, asking this rather tricky question. Mallika, is there or not one who is more beloved than your own self? Paraphrase, is there someone that you love much more than yourself? Okay, you're watching a Hindi movie here. All right, so this beautiful scene is starting. The king wants the queen to reply, say, oh, yes, there is, you know, and it's right before me, something like that, and everything will be well. But there'll be no sutta. There'll be no sutta, see, because nothing really interesting there, all right? So here you have this very intelligent queen, also very honest, and she has something to teach this king, the husband. So she replies, she says that there is no one, Maharaja, dearer to me than myself. Wow, that's quite a brave thing to say, isn't it? There is no one dearer to me than myself. Now, I'm sure no one here can contradict this, right? Right? Because she knows what she's saying, and that's not all that she's going to say. She asked a counter question. She's very sharp, you know. The counter question is this: is there, Maharaja, anyone dearer to you than yourself? Notice that, right? So what she's saying now, I'm thinking like this. I'm sure you agree with me. The king is caught, is it? So the king has to reply, for me too, Mallika. There is no one dearer to me than myself. All right. So you may say, oh, so far so good, you know. But this king, kings are usually quite proud people, especially in India. Of course, he probably agrees, say, well, okay, this woman is really clever, but he's not very happy. In fact, whenever he's not happy, you go to see the Buddha. So he goes to the Buddha, right? Verse 6. Then Raja Pasenadi of Kosala came down from his palace and approached the Blessed One. Having approached the Blessed One and saluted him, he sat down at one side. Sitting thus at one side, Raja Pasenadi of Kosala said this to the Blessed One. Here I was, Bhante, together with Queen Mallika on the roof terrace of the royal palace. When I said this to Queen Mallika, Mallika, is there or not one who is more beloved than your own self? There is one, Maharaja, dearer to me than myself. Is there, Maharaja, anyone dearer to you than yourself? When this was said, Bhante, I said this to Queen Mallika. For me too, Mallika, there is no one dearer than myself. So here you see this idea of repetition, partly for the audience and partly also a kind of Indian storytelling. And here you have reported speech, and you have this idea of nesting in Indian literature. In other words, levels, the depth of who is talking. Here you have like 2-3 levels, and there are, I think, a few lessons ago we look at one sutta where there are like five levels of nesting. Someone said something, who said this, who said that, and so on. Anyway, so here you have this king, but we're not sure how he felt like when he was talking to the Buddha, and whether he was smiling or he was kind of saying, oh no, look at women, they're so clever, So he told the Buddha he wants to get some consolation. This king is kind of a little sentimental sometimes. He really respects the Buddha very much. So whenever he is in difficulty, he'll go to the Buddha and say, this will happen to me, and then the Buddha will comfort him. So here, the sutta is about the Buddha comforting this king. In a sense, you might say, helping him with this male ego, if you like, I mean, this is our own way of thinking. But here, basically, the king did the right thing. He went to see the Buddha. And then what did the Buddha say? Right, so this is where the sutta closes with the Buddha's udana, the joyful statement the Buddha tells the king. Then the Blessed One, having known its import at that time, import here means the meaning, uttered this verse. It's a joyful verse. Udana means a verse of uplift. It's a joyful statement. The Buddha probably smiling when he says this. Having traversed all the quarters with the mind. In other words, the Buddha is saying, I've surveyed the whole world with my mind. One surely finds none anywhere dearer than oneself. Thus, for each of us, love the self the most. Therefore, one who loves the self shall not harm another. So here the Buddha is already hinting to the king that we should not hurt anyone who has this kind of feeling, right? So this is where you find the Buddha is always doing something indirectly for powerful people like the king. He does not tell the king directly what he should not do, but he will, in a very gentle way, tell him, don't hurt these people, right? So here, see the Buddha saying, everybody loves their own self, so therefore we should not hurt others. So similarly, this reminds me of a story of Angulimala, right? Again, the king is the same. The king is Pasenadi. Pasenadi was going to hunt down Angulimala, this terrible bandit who goes around killing hundreds of people. So Angulimala had already become a monk, and Angulimala was sitting very peacefully. I think probably was a stream winner already. He was sitting down quietly beside the Buddha. And here comes along Pasenadi with his army. He's going to hunt down this Angulimala. And so he comes to see the Buddha because he's very worried. The king is very scared of Angulimala, is very fierce. So he tells the Buddha, I'm going to the forest to catch Angulimala. And this terrible bandit. Of course, to cut a long story short, the Buddha then smiled and asked the king, say, okay, he says, Your Majesty, what if Angulimala were to repent, and then convert and become a monk. And then the king says, "Oh wow, that is wonderful, you know." Basically, he's saying his job is done, you know. He said, "Then of course I will respect him, you know, show him my respect, give him the four requisites: robes, arms, food, shelter, and medicine, you know? And so on." So they go on talking. So the Buddha wants to make sure the king would say those things, you know? And the king continues speaking and says, "Oh, okay, as king, I will give you my protection because all the holy man in my kingdom is protected." So the Buddha let him talk, and that there is this army and people around listening, so they're all witnesses. So he wants to make sure the king says these things so that Angulimala, as a monk, is safe. And then the Buddha tells the king, this part is really amusing, really beautiful. He points with his hand, he says, "This, Your Majesty, is Angulimala." And you can imagine the people were terrified, and the king probably was terrified at first. And of course, he was really surprised, and he talked to Angulimala and then asked him the questions to make sure that he is Angulimala by asking him who is his parents and so on. Anyway, the point of my relating this story is to show you how the Buddha is very skillfully, he knows the way of the kings, but he was a royalty himself in his own time, the Buddha. So he knows how to talk to the kings, to powerful people, telling them not to harm others, right? So here you see again this very beautiful story about how the Buddha interact with people. He's not just talking about meditation and jhanas and things like that. He's talking about how we should be kind to each other, we should be wise, we should be loving, and so on. Right, so there you are. You have these three beautiful stories for you to read again, for you to reflect on, and then see how you can improve your lives by living a life of a lay Buddhist. Okay, you have 30 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Brother Piya. I'll pass the Q&A to Sister Exit.
Okay.
Thank you, Sister Wendy. Thank you, Teacher Piya, for the Sutta teaching. Brothers and sisters, you are invited to ask your question verbally, or you can type your question in the chat box.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Questions? Anyone?
Brother Piya, there's no question in the chat box yet.
Okay. All right. Sooner or later we get questions. You can either put up your hand and ask, or you can type in the chat box. You can also ask general questions about Buddhism if you have any. It's a good time to ask a live question. Anyone, any comments on any of the three suttas?
Piya,
Yes.
did the husband Nakulamata become a deva?
I suppose from this sutta, we can say they both, after passing away, are reborn in the Deva world. It's possible. Yeah, thank you for asking the question, because just remember something I missed to say. So I mentioned earlier, people who do a lot of charity and so on, you know, then they are good people. So when they die, they're reborn as devas. But then, as you know, once the karma is gone, and these devas, they know they're going to die and they're very unhappy. And then they will all, as a rule, they will fall from their heavenly life. And it's like playing that game where people, you know, the snake and ladder. So you get bitten by the snake, you go down back to square one, you know. So, however, if you are a stream winner or you're a once returner, then it's different, because then you will never fall below to the subhuman world. You will never fall into the animal world or the Preta world. Definitely not the hells, you know, or even an asura. So the streamers, they will lowest level is human life, and they'll be happy. The place they are born will be help them to practice the dhamma as stream winners, that is. So to be reborn in the heaven as a stream winner is definitely a good thing. But of course, it is as humans, it will help them to, I think, help them to advance faster on the path, because you see suffering and notice change better as humans. Okay.
But the stream winner, the past bad karma, still they have to pay back, isn't it?
Not all the karma, certain karma, when the conditions are there, okay? If the conditions are not there, then they pass away and they're not reborn, yeah, then it's fine, okay? There are teachers who teach like Mahavira, you know, they teach that you have to pay back all your karma. If that's the case, then we will never be awakened, because you don't know how much karma you've done since immeasurable time, right? So it's not like that, because you can't really measure karma. That's the other thing. Okay, any other question? Got about 15 minutes, you can still ask.
Okay, question.
Yes.
Can you comment on harmonious wisdom? What does it mean by wisdom here?
Okay. There are various levels of wisdom, as we know, right? So here, basically, wisdom is self-knowledge, the kind of you understand it for yourself from your experience. And this is the kind of learning that makes you happy, make other people happy, based on natural truth that doesn't take advantage of anyone, that doesn't put anyone in any kind of bad situation. So that's one way of looking at it. Of course, there is also this learning of the dhamma aspect, where person understand the dhamma better and they help each other to understand the dhamma better. So, you know, like for example, Rana and I, we sometimes talk a bit of dhamma also, you know, so it's good to just, you don't have to go into profound discussion, but something like just share a short story or a short comment about some wonderful teaching that inspires you. So that also will be regarded as wisdom, okay? Or sometimes you don't even have to measure, you don't have to mention the word Buddhism. You say something happy, something wonderful to someone who needs it. And the person will say, wow, you know, I like this thing you tell me, it's wonderful. And then that's when after that you can say, well, you know, I learned this from the Buddha, from the Sutta. So those are examples of wisdom, right? Okay, any more questions? Time is running out, 10 more minutes. Then you have to wait 2 more weeks to ask questions, right?
I have another question. Since nobody
Okay.
Okay, I want to ask you about giving space to each other.
Say that again. Okay, turn down your volume a bit louder.
Sorry. Giving space as
Okay.
a couple to each other.
Okay, let me ask a counter question. Which teaching are you thinking of here?
Let's
We are
see.
quite meaning of
I'm
Nakula.
talking about I
Sorry?
think this one.
What's the meaning of
Mm.
Nakula? Nakula, Nakula. What's the meaning
Yeah,
of
yes.
Nakula?
No.
Wait, I'm not finished yet.
Okay, wait, hold on. I'll come back to you, Doris.
Okay, I'm thinking about should it be falling into the category of showing loving kindness to each other?
Louder, please.
Showing loving kindness to each
Ah,
other.
yeah.
Giving space to each other.
All right. You see, the thing about real human marriage is that it doesn't work out like the suttas all the time. See, of course, occasionally you may get something really wonderful, you know. People are different. We're not even stream winners. So we tend to be worldly, we tend to worry, we tend to be influenced by people we know, relatives, and so on. We worry about the family. So this is where to give space, in a sense, is to basically allow people to make mistakes. Sometimes it's difficult to explain things, to tell they're wrong. So if you are wise enough, whether a husband or wife, you just let this other person make the mistake, but you are there watching. You're like dealing with this little baby, little child. The child makes a mistake, and you're there to hold back the child, whatever. And then it becomes a lesson, an object lesson. Then you tell the person, yeah, that will happen. So I'm happy that he didn't go further. So how you say it also is important. So basically, going as far as this person needs to go, but you're there, always there, holding, ready to catch this person when he falls, so to speak. All right. It's like someone told a very funny thing on the internet. It says, this person I love is so terrible. He throws me down from the highest spot, and then after that he runs down there and catches me. Something like that, The meaning is that the person who loves you allows you to make mistakes, and then when you make the mistake, you say, oops, why did I do that? But this person is forgiving, and the person tells you why it is wrong and how to correct it. So a kind of give and take. It's not easy, sometimes it goes both ways. It's better than giving a long lecture and then you find the partner may start getting bored and even become aggressive and say, well, why is this guy so clever? So you need to have this kind of give and take kind of thing. So I mean, as I was saying, I often say to my friends, you start learning about each other after marriage, because you live with each other and then you start adjusting. So you still need to learn. In fact, the best learning actually starts after marriage, and you got to keep on learning. We don't see this other partner as a fixed photograph. They're all changing. We grow old, we age. Even as we age, we change. Our ideas change, our views change. Yeah? So we have got to keep up people that way. Okay. All right. Yes, Doris, what's your question?
What's the meaning of Nakula?
Nakula means mongoose. Mongoose. It's like looks like an otter, but it's a mammal. It's a land animal, and it is very clever in catching snakes and eats snakes. I don't think it's found locally. It's found in India, northern India. Mongoose. It looks like this an otter, like a weasel, if you like. Okay.
Father Piya, there's a question from Vicky G.
Yes.
Piya, for couple, they can be reborn as couple again if they meet the listed qualities. How about parent and child?
Oh, yes, that's possible too. Yes. If you keep on sending metta to people who are important to you, and you have this wonderful good connection, chances are you'll be reborn again. But remember, as I said, on the other scale, if you're nasty to people, you keep on thinking nasty things, you will meet them again in the future. And that's why we don't want that sort of thing. See? That's why we forgive our enemies, so to speak. We send positive thoughts to them. At least we keep ourselves safe with that kind of distance. Our safe distance is loving kindness, especially to nasty people. Because by remembering the nasty things, we keep them inside us. So we don't want to remember those things. I have some people who really hurt me, and somehow I find that I can never talk about them. Not because it's too painful, but because out of compassion, I told myself, if I were to tell all these stories, they have children. If their children hear about this, imagine what their children will feel and think. So I'm not ready for that. And moreover, these people who really hurt me, they have suffered greatly themselves later in life. So we don't want to think of negative things about people who have really hurt us. So we keep our mind clear and we're happy, and we age gracefully because we don't have that. We are not burdened with that kind of darkness. You see, right? As Nietzsche says, when you gaze into the darkness long enough, the darkness will gaze back at you. That's not very good. Meaning, if you think negative thoughts, people come back to you. So we don't want that. That's why loving kindness is very important. It is healing. It also protects us from the dangers of the dark side. Okay. All right. Any other question?
Thank you, Brother Piya. Okay, there's no more question in the chat box.
Yeah, that sounded like Star Wars, the dark
Oh,
side.
yeah. I was going to say that. Thank you for voicing my thoughts. Yeah, you find that when the Skywalker is fighting with the father, he doesn't know he's a father, right? So the kind of dialogue. In fact, you find the story writer of those series, he is influenced by religion, and one of it, of course, is Buddhism.
George Lucas.
Yes. So you have a lot of Buddhist themes there. Of course, he wouldn't want to say it openly because he wants to sell his movies.
Yeah. So, Brother Piya, are there any particular phrases that you use for such people who the thoughts regarding whom might come to your mind, who like you are irritated with, or let's say they've hurt you in some way?
I would see how hurt I am, or sometimes I feel terrified, because I tell myself, wow, if it's the other way around, imagine, it's terrible. So for my benefit, I say, I forgive you. So self-love is important here. So if you love yourself, that's what you will say. You don't say, good for you. You see, this is what happens when you do this to me. I mean, in the movies, yes, but not in real life. We don't say that, you see. So because it could be the other way around. People don't hurt us when they are happy. They are not happy. They are suffering in some way, maybe out of jealousy, so many other things. Can you imagine people were jealous because I studied suttas, I wanted to study suttas, and because because when you like something, you become good at it, and that also creates jealousy. So you have that sort of situation, and you got to understand that's real life, and then somehow adjust yourself accordingly, and use what you have learned from the Dhamma. So this forgiving the other person is very helpful. Okay.
See, if let's say if I am not in a place where I can honestly say that I forgive you, can we say, may you be well and happy? Does that work as well?
Yes. The idea is not to harbor that negative thought. Remember, this person that you hate is long gone. It is the idea in your mind that you are dealing with. He doesn't exist anymore. It's no more there. It's gone. It's the past. We're always dealing with the past, you see. And how it frightens us or inspires us is up to us. It is where you look, right? So when you say, I forgive you, you're actually healing yourself. You're putting this balm, this medicine, this plaster onto yourself. So you're saying that, and you won't react in a negative way. You're not carrying the ancient darkness with you anymore. And you're happy, see? Because when you don't have that sort of thought, you're happy. But those are not happy thoughts. People hurt you because they want you to suffer, you see? That's why very often enough in the sutta, even one of the suttas we studied, it is mentioned that your enemies won't see you suffering, you see? Something like that, okay? So the Buddha is telling the different ways why it's not worth it when you hit back onto others in that way. And this is the great thing about Buddhism. It is the art of subtle self-defense in terms of goodness. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. Now that brings us right up to 10 o'clock. I hope my clock is on time. My clock is getting very old, I think. It's kind of slowing down.
Can I ask one more short question?
Sure.
Just like we say, we use in a manner of speaking, right? Like dark and light and evil and
Yes.
good. So just to talk about nibbana in a sense, so is like, does the Buddha say anywhere, or could that also be considered as a positive or towards light, or is it like neutral beyond positive and negative, beyond dark and light?
I suppose the Buddha does use the light imagery. For example, the sutta say that the Buddha is the kinsman of the sun. The sun is a source of light, you see, right? So we do have that sort of idea, but it's not so prominent like in the Iranian religions. In the Iranian religion, like Manikism, you find their God is light, and the other evil is darkness. So that one is that kind of religion, but you don't see that in Buddhism. We don't take that kind of imagery too far.
Okay, but it's slightly there.
It's there, yes, it is there. For example, if you look at the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the part where the Buddha talks about the awakening, and then there is this light, and there are different words for the light, and wisdom, and different words of wisdom. So light is equated with wisdom.
Right. For consciousness without surface, also I think he uses that phrase, no?
Yes.
Luminous all around.
Right, yeah. So luminous, this consciousness is said to be luminous, bright. Yeah, we do have. I suppose you can write a thesis on that if you want to. Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other urgent questions?
Thank you, Brother Piya.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So first of all, I'm really happy that you all can make it to this Sutta class today, and so I really hope to see you again in the next one. Huh?
Brother Piya,
Yes.
Brother Piya, can I ask another question?
Okay. Yeah.
You say the loving kindness, love ourselves first, and then you see, then we love ourselves. But some people, they over loving themselves, and they become self-centered, and they
Very true. Yes, that's true. That is why we got to complete the loving kindness practice. We don't just stop at the first step, you see. So hating ourselves also is the other extreme, which is not good, right? So got to balance yourself out. That is why teachers are important. So teachers, remember that at the end of the sutta, the Buddha tells Pasenadi, now that we love ourselves, so we should not hurt others because they also love themselves. So this is called the golden rule, right? Okay, on that note, we will close. And I'm happy that I've been able to teach you the sutta today. And I can, I get a good feeling when I teach suttas, and I can get back to my work after this, really knowing there are people there who really cared for the teaching. So now let us spend a quiet moment to reflect on this really precious time we've spent together as friends in Dhamma, seeking the truth. We're listening to a teaching given 2,500 years ago. And here we are from different parts of the world. We're able to gather together, something really rare and difficult, but we have done it. We are doing it. That alone is amazing. Reflect and be joyful in all this. This is the time for us to remember this wonderful, very good moment we are spending, to send our kind thoughts, our loving thoughts to our loved ones, especially when they are far away from us, overseas. Send your kind thoughts to them. Picture them and tell them, may you be well and happy. May you be at peace. I accept you just as you are, and all the good thoughts. Spend a bit of moment, send those kind thoughts to people who matter to you. And finally, we will close by showing our gratitude to the three jewels, the Buddha, our teacher, the Dhamma, the teaching we practice, and the Sangha, those we aspire the level to attain. Arahang Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. Bow down to the Buddha. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namassami. Bow down to the Dhamma. Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. Bow down to the Sangha. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.